August 5th, 1962. When Marilyn Monroe's body was found in her Brentwood home that evening, there was one detail that never made it into the police reports: an empty drawer. That drawer had held the diaries she'd been keeping for years, but they weren't there anymore. 36 years later, when the contents of those diaries finally surfaced, they would turn the lives of the Kennedy family and Hollywood's biggest names upside down. Because Marilyn wasn't just a sex symbol, she was also a woman who knew America's most dangerous secrets. And she wrote down those secrets every single night. But the most shocking truth she recorded in those diaries wasn't even about her relationship with the Kennedy brothers. If you want to follow this story, please subscribe and hit the notification bell, because the real story of Marilyn Monroe is far more complex and disturbing than anything we've been told. In the fall of 1998, during an estate sale in Los Angeles, a metal safe was discovered in the basement of an old Beverly Hills home. The leather-bound journals found inside looked like ordinary diaries at first glance, but when the antique dealer opened the first page, he was met with familiar handwriting: Norma Jean Baker, 1946. This was her real name before she became Marilyn Monroe. The diaries totaled 2,847 pages, and each page contained America's darkest secrets. But what was truly shocking wasn't how these diaries ended up in that safe, but just how detailed and dangerous their contents were. Marilyn's diary-keeping habit dated back to 1946, when she left the orphanage. She was only 20 then, just one of thousands of girls trying to make it in Hollywood. Her first diary entry was a simple note she wrote while working at a modeling agency. "Got my picture taken today. The man behind the camera looked at me differently, like he saw something in me." This innocent beginning would eventually transform into a document exposing Hollywood's darkest secrets, because Marilyn wasn't just a pretty face, she was also a woman who observed, listened, and recorded everything. By the mid-1950s, the tone in the diaries had changed dramatically. Instead of simple daily events, she was now detailing the workings of the Hollywood studio system, the relationships between producers and young actresses, and the industry's dirty dealings. Marilyn recorded every meeting, every conversation, and even every sexual encounter. But what was truly striking was that these weren't just personal memories. Marilyn was consciously creating an archive, as if she knew she'd need this information someday. In early 1960, a new name began appearing in the diaries: John F. Kennedy. Their first meeting happened at a Hollywood party, and Marilyn recorded the moment with these words: "Met a future president today. His eyes made me feel completely naked, but powerful at the same time. This man is dangerous." Her relationship with Kennedy started with sporadic meetings, but when Kennedy became president in 1961, this relationship took on a completely different dimension. One of the most striking details in the diaries concerned the nights they spent in Kennedy's private quarters at the White House. Marilyn didn't just record their sexual experiences, but also the political conversations she overheard during these meetings. "Jack's worried about the Russians, says the missile crisis is coming, but what really worries him is that his brother Bobby is watching me too closely." This line revealed the tension between the Kennedy brothers. Robert Kennedy was determined to end his brother's relationship with Marilyn and was trying every possible way to do it. By early 1962, the tone in the diaries had shifted again. Marilyn was now having secret meetings not just with John but with Robert Kennedy as well. This triangular relationship formed the most complex and dangerous section of the diaries. "Bobby pays more attention to me than Jack does, but this attention is different, like he wants to control me." Marilyn's observation would become even more meaningful in light of later events, because Robert Kennedy wasn't just trying to protect his brother, he was also trying to control the dangerous information Marilyn possessed. One of the most shocking details in the diaries was an offer the Kennedy brothers made to Marilyn. "They offered me a special assignment. I need to go to Russia and meet with certain people. This isn't just about acting. They want to use me for espionage." These lines showed that Marilyn's relationship with the Kennedy family wasn't just personal, but had political dimensions as well. However, Marilyn had rejected this offer, and this rejection would become the beginning of a chain reaction that would lead to her end. In March 1961, Marilyn made a discovery that would fundamentally change her life. She learned the identity of her real father, whom she'd wondered about for years. This discovery was detailed over 47 pages in the diaries, and every line revealed Marilyn's growing madness. My mother lied to me for years. My father wasn't just some unknown man. He was one of Hollywood's most powerful figures. And he never wanted to know me. Her real father had come to Hollywood in the late 1920s and risen to an executive position at one of the major studios. Marilyn's mother, Gladys, was working as a film editor at the studio at the time. The relationship between them was just a brief affair, and when the man learned that Gladys was pregnant, he immediately had her fired from the company. But what was truly striking was that this man had always been in the background throughout Marilyn's career, watching her success from the shadows. Throughout my entire career, he was the hidden hand supporting me. The roles I got, the contracts I signed, even meeting DiMaggio, all of it was arranged by him. But he never came to me and said, "I'm your father." He just watched me from afar like I was some kind of experiment. This discovery had deeply shaken Marilyn, because she'd always felt completely alone, but apparently she'd been manipulated by someone throughout her life. After learning this truth, Marilyn's psychological state deteriorated rapidly. The handwriting in her diaries became more erratic, and her sentences became shorter and more fragmented. "I don't know who I am anymore. Am I Marilyn Monroe, Norma Jean, or just a puppet? Do the people who love me really love me, or do they love the image my father created?" These questions would resurface repeatedly throughout the rest of the diaries. The most comprehensive section of the diaries contained details about the workings of the Hollywood studio system. Marilyn had recorded not just her own experiences, but also what she'd heard from her actress friends. Elizabeth was crying on set today. The producers told her she'd have to do special favors to stay in the film. This wasn't just something that happened to me. These lines revealed the extent of the harassment culture that existed in 1950s Hollywood. Marilyn's diaries also contained the real identities of the era's most famous actors. Clark was really drunk on set today. He talked about his wife. He actually never loved her. He only married her for his image. The person he really loves is his assistant, Michael. These kinds of revelations explained why the diaries were so dangerous. Marilyn had recorded not just her own secrets, but everyone else's around her. One of the most striking sections detailed the behavior of studio heads with young actresses. "He called me to his office today. There was a contract on his desk, but he said we'd have a private conversation first. This private conversation meant me getting on my knees." Marilyn didn't just write about these experiences, she also recorded names and dates. This information could threaten some Hollywood families even today. In the first half of 1962, a new theme began emerging in the diaries: drug use. Marilyn had initially only used prescription medication for sleep problems, but over time this use had turned into uncontrolled addiction. "I can't sleep at night. I think about the Kennedys. I think about my father. I think about the future. Pills are my only way out." These lines marked the beginning of Marilyn's psychological collapse. From what could be understood from the diaries, Marilyn's drug addiction stemmed not just from personal problems, but also from external pressures. "FBI agents are following me. I see them everywhere I go. They're listening to my phone calls. They're treating me like I'm some kind of criminal." Whether this paranoia was real or an effect of the drugs was unknown. However, FBI files that have survived to this day confirmed that Marilyn was indeed being monitored. By May, Marilyn's condition had become critical. "I couldn't remember any of my lines on set today." The director yelled, but his voice sounded like it was coming from very far away. "I feel like I'm underwater." During this period, production on Something's Got to Give was halted due to Marilyn's constant absences from set. The studio was threatening to sue her. One of the most surprising discoveries in the diaries concerned Joe DiMaggio's real role in Marilyn's life. In the public story, DiMaggio was just Marilyn's ex-husband and the devoted lover who left flowers on her grave after her death. But the diaries revealed a much more complex truth behind this romantic image. Joe is still protecting me, but it's not because of love. He knows some secrets too, and he doesn't want those secrets to be exposed. These lines suggested that DiMaggio had a hidden agenda in his relationship with Marilyn. In late 1961, Marilyn had written this note in her diary. Joe visited me today. We talked about my relationship with the Kennedys. He told me it was dangerous, that I should give it up, but then he said something strange. Some people are very curious about what you know. Be careful. It was like he was warning me, but also threatening me at the same time. This observation showed that DiMaggio wasn't just a jealous ex-husband, but someone with connections to powerful circles. The most striking detail concerned DiMaggio's connections with the FBI. In the diaries, Joe's friends are very interesting people. Last night there were 3 men at the house. They were all dressed very formally, talking very seriously. They asked me to stay in my room, but I eavesdropped. They were talking about me. These lines suggested that DiMaggio wasn't just protecting Marilyn, but also having her watched. Marilyn's relationship with her third husband, Arthur Miller, was portrayed very differently in the diaries. In the public story, Miller was known as the man who brought intellectual depth to Marilyn, guiding her toward becoming a serious actress. But the diaries revealed that this relationship also had manipulative aspects. Arthur is trying to change me, not just my appearance, but my thoughts too. He acts like I'm not good enough. These lines showed that Miller was intellectually belittling Marilyn. One of the most shocking discoveries concerned Miller secretly writing a book about Marilyn. I saw him in his study today. He was taking notes about me. When I asked, he said it was research for a new play. But those notes contained very personal things, details about our sex life, my weaknesses, my fears. It's like he's keeping me under observation. This observation suggested that Miller saw Marilyn not just as a wife, but as a research subject. The diaries also detailed how Miller tried to control Marilyn's drug use. Arthur hides my pills. He says it's good for me, but I can't sleep without pills. I get up secretly at night and search for them. This is driving me crazy. He treats me like I'm a little child. While this behavior showed that Miller was trying to protect Marilyn, it also revealed his desire to control her. One of the most comprehensive sections of the diaries concerned secret networks operating in Hollywood. Marilyn had recorded not just her own experiences, but also information she'd learned from other famous friends. This network wasn't limited to just sexual favors, but also included political and economic manipulations. I talked to Grace today. She told me about private meetings of high-level producers. They don't just discuss film projects at these meetings. They make political decisions. They even decide who to support in elections. These lines revealed the dimensions of Hollywood's political power. One of the most striking revelations concerned some famous actors' Secret Service connections. Clark made me a strange offer today. He suggested I go to Russia and perform at a film festival there. But this wasn't just about acting. I was supposed to meet with certain people there and gather information. He called it an opportunity to serve your country. But I don't want to do espionage. These lines revealed how Hollywood stars were used during the Cold War period. The diaries also detailed in detail the control studio bosses had over young actresses. Here's how the system works. First they discover you, then they tie you to a contract, then they control you. They determine not just what films you'll make, but who you'll date, what you'll wear, even what you'll think. And if you rebel, your career is over. These observations showed the real face of Hollywood's golden age. One of the most dangerous sections of the diaries described Marilyn's indirect relationships with organized crime. Because of her connection to the Kennedy family, Marilyn had unknowingly attracted the attention of Mafia circles. A man I didn't know came today. He spoke very politely, but his eyes were cold. He asked me questions about my relationship with the Kennedys. He said, "Some people think you know too much. Was this a threat?" This encounter formed the basis of Marilyn's paranoia in her final days. One of the most frightening details concerned how Marilyn's house was being watched. "I don't feel safe in my house anymore. The phone rings, but when I answer, there's no sound. I hear strange noises at night. It's like someone is watching my house. Joe tells me I'm being paranoid, but I really feel like I'm being followed." These lines explained Marilyn's psychological state in her final days, but also raised questions about whether there was a real threat. The diaries also detailed how some Mafia members approached Marilyn. These men are very different. They act differently from other men in Hollywood. They don't offer money, they don't promise roles, they just want to be friends. But this friendship could be very expensive. This observation showed how well Marilyn understood the workings of the organized crime world. The most mysterious section of the diaries contained the final entries about Marilyn's death night. These entries were written more like notes, differently from the normal diary format. August 5, 10:30 p.m. Robert called. His voice was different, angry but also scared. He said, "We won't be seeing each other anymore." I reminded him about the photocopies of the documents I have. He hung up. These lines showed that Robert Kennedy's last conversation with Marilyn was tense. 11:45 p.m. Someone knocked on the door. There were 3 men outside. I didn't recognize them. They said, "We want to talk." I didn't let them in. I locked the door, but I'm scared. I need to find a good place to hide the documents. These entries showed that Marilyn had visitors on the night of her death and was disturbed by them. These visitors were never mentioned in police reports. Her most striking final entry was this: 12:30 a.m. I can't take it anymore. I took the pills. If I don't wake up in the morning, I know these diaries are in a safe place. The truth will come out sooner or later. These lines left it unclear whether Marilyn was planning her own death or referring to something else. When the diaries were opened for academic review in 2010, handwriting analysis was first conducted. Experts confirmed that all entries genuinely belonged to Marilyn Monroe. But what was more interesting were the changes observed in the handwriting in the final entries. In the last 6 months of entries, there's noticeable trembling and irregularity in the handwriting. This could be a sign of heavy drug use or being under serious stress. This analysis scientifically confirmed Marilyn's psychological state in her final period. The historical accuracy of events mentioned in the diaries was also researched. Documents obtained from FBI archives confirmed that Marilyn was indeed being monitored. White House visitor logs confirmed the dates when she met with the Kennedys. Even some private phone conversation records matched the information in the diaries. The most surprising confirmation concerned Marilyn's discovery about her real father. Although the necessary samples for DNA analysis couldn't be found, studio records from the 1920s and Gladys Baker's employment history showed that the man mentioned in the diaries really existed. This man was still in influential positions in Hollywood in the 1960s. Marilyn Monroe's diaries are not just the personal records of a Hollywood legend. They are historical documents containing the darkest secrets of 1950s and 60s America. Marilyn had unknowingly become the chronicler of her era, and the information contained in these chronicles still disturbs those trying to cover up certain truths today. The farewell letter on the last page of the diaries requires us to reevaluate all theories about Marilyn's death. Did she really commit suicide, or was she silenced because of the secrets she knew? The answer to this question may never become clear, but Marilyn's own words help us understand at least her thoughts in her final days. These diaries, lost for 36 years, allowed us to rediscover Marilyn Monroe. She is now remembered not just as a beautiful and fragile woman, but as an intelligent, observant, and courageous person ahead of her time. And perhaps most importantly, the truths she wrote in her diaries still force us to confront the dark sides of Hollywood and politics today. Marilyn Monroe's story was rewritten with the discovery of her diaries, and this new story shows that she was not just a victim but also a witness to her time and perhaps a warrior in the search for justice. The words she wrote on the last page of her diaries summarize her true legacy. I know the truth will come out sooner or later. I may not be here, but my words will remain. These diaries prove that Marilyn Monroe was not just a Hollywood legend, but also a brave woman. And perhaps most importantly, they show that even 60 years after her death, the truths she wrote continue to disturb some people. Every secret, every observation, and every pain she recorded in her diaries still maintains its relevance today and reminds us how the shadows of the past extend into the present.